At this time, I'd like to call to order the TIRZ 1, 2, 3, 4, and Power Center Board meeting on this January 3rd, 2024. Invocation line. Mr. Barber, would you like to do invocation, please? Sorry to catch you off guard.
That's all right. Our Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this day and ask you to be with all of us this morning as we make decisions for the city of Terrell and plans for the future. I ask you to keep us all safe, as well as our military and our first responders. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen. If we can stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
They're over here. We moved them. There you go.
Moved them, okay. Here we go.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, one God, one and indivisible.
All right, any remarks or comments from any visitors? Complaints can be directed to Mike.
That's right. That's what I'm here for.
If not, we can move right along to number 5. Discuss approval of minutes for the TIRZ 1, 2, 3, 4 and the Power Center Board from November 8th. I hope everyone's had a chance to review and look over them. Are there any questions? If no questions, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, business items. Discuss and consider a TIRZ number 1 development agreement with authorization resolution for the Proficient Development LLC for the Kingsman Estates development located northwest of the intersection of Eason Street and West End Street.
So I'm going to start by actually doing just a quick little introduction, if you don't mind, because we've got some new faces here, and then I'm going to hand this off to Janet to give you a more detailed presentation on. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce Mark Mills. Mark Mills is our new Assistant City Manager. He comes from North Richland Hills, where he spent many years as their Finance Director. Before that, he was their Budget Director. Before that, he was a Management Analyst and all-around great guy for the City of Carrollton. So he's got a lot of great experience. He's one of the handful of folks that made it through the gauntlet of getting both a bachelor's and a master's degree from University of North Texas in their public administration program. That's a really highly regarded program, and I love it since it's in Denton, so that's a good thing. And we're really, really happy he's here. He's been here for just a little while and is already doing great work for us. So we appreciate him, and you're going to start seeing him a whole bunch here at the TIRZ meetings, because one of his assignments will be to make sure that we get all of our details and all of our ducks in a row just right for all of the TIRZs. And he's got experience with the North Richland Hills TIRZ operations that they have over there as well. So with that, I want to also keep rolling through here and say, okay, what are we doing? We've talked about this in executive session before. This is that 36 house development that is on the land that is just south of the railroad tracks. And so if you go south on Bethlehem, you could turn immediately after the railroad tracks on Dick and get over to this vacant piece of land. A lot of y'all know that it was cleared fairly recently, a couple of years ago. The owner at the time was thinking about doing the development themselves. They've really decided that they want to sell the development, and we've been working through this process with them of what they wanted to do was sell it with the development agreement and with a preliminary plat attached, essentially a preliminary site plan, very detailed site plan that establishes lot sizes and all that sort of thing. So the buyer really knows what they're getting and what they can really do at that particular location. In way of trying to get all of this done, we were were concerned about sound issues. We raised our hand about a sound wall over in that area. We were concerned about the existing state of Eason Street from West End over to Dick, because it's a fairly beat-up street if you've been out there anytime recently. And we were concerned about pedestrian traffic on West End. So we couldn't solve all of those problems, but what we were able to negotiate through here is that the developer will step up and do some things they are not required to do by our own standards, right? They're not required to do a sound wall. They're not required to do extra plantings of large shade trees to kind of keep the noise down due to the railroad track being there. They're not required to do Eason under our standards. They're not required to do sidewalks on West End by our standards. So since they're going to add and do additional things above and beyond our standards, we wanted to put them into a development agreement. And we wanted to do two things in the development agreement, and both of which they agreed to. Janet will give you the details of that, but we did talk in executive session about, well, gee, is this particular agreement, being that it's a residential only agreement, our original authorization under TIRZ 1, if you recall, is different than TIRZ 2, 3, and 4. TIRZ 2, 3, and 4, we have some very strict limitations on what we're doing with residential. TIRZ number 1, we said, no, we are going to move forward and do residential projects. So I definitely want to raise my hand and say we may be back to you in the future and say, yes, we do want to involve both the city TIRZ money and the county TIRZ money on a residential project. But in this particular case, we have done the negotiations to leave out any use of the county TIRZ dollars related to this particular incentive. So you're going to see this as a city-only incentive. We haven't done that before, but we did feel like in this particular case it was warranted because we really didn't have that big of a gap between where we thought the project needed to be and what the developer felt like they needed. So we've got that sewn up for you. Jana is going to be shepherding this project along. Jana is our development manager working under Chris Snap, and we're happy here. A lot of new faces around here, so we're happy Jana's here as well. Some of you guys might have met her before because some people call her a Terrell local, so she's got some roots in the community, and she has the unfortunate life of living somewhat near Steve Rogers. So we won't talk about that burden in her life, but take it away, Jana. Thank you.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Commissioners. As Mr. Sims stated, I'm bringing you an agreement for development at the intersection of West End Street and Easton Street. This landowner, who is also local as well as their construction contractor, are both local, and they're proposing a new residential development with 36 lots. The developer, along with the city, have agreed to the following terms, and these are, I'm just highlighting on some of the top ones. 36 residential lots. Developer will be responsible for closing and reconfiguring a portion of Dick Street. Dick Street runs parallel with the railroad, and so there's going to be one section that we are requiring that be closed in, and then they'll use guidelines for proper city standard requirements. Rebuild Easton Street per the city standards with new water, sewer, storm water, curb, gutter, and sidewalks. Extend the 6-foot sidewalks or build at new locations south side of West End Street from Bradshaw to the old Oakwood Cemetery boundary line. Developer will also, as Mr. Sims just stated, construct an 8-foot masonry sound buffer wall along the portion that abuts their new development and the railroad. The city has negotiated, and our obligations are, city will require any necessary easements and off-site easements required for public right-of-way, drainage, and utility improvements. In consideration of each improvement to Easton Street made by the developer to public roads, sidewalks, etc., city proposes to credit 100% of the transportation roadway impact fees. Now, of course, all other fees will still apply, and the developer will be responsible for it. City also proposes to provide an amount equal to, for each residence that's homestead, exempt a 3-year of 75% reimbursement of maintenance and operation of property taxes. We plan to present this development agreement to the City Council on January the 9th, and I'll close if you have any questions for me.
Can you repeat the fees to the homeowners?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say homestead?
Yes, the city proposes to provide amount equal on homestead exempt properties only for 3 years, 75%.
Is this part of the 36 homes, 34 homes?
36
Those that qualify?
that qualify, that have,
There we go.
filed application for homestead. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
What's the lot size and the square feet of these homes?
The minimum is going to be 7,000 square feet. The average will be 7,500 square feet. And so the smallest lot width is going to be 70 foot wide. And then some of them are 80s and some of them are 75, just based on the configuration out there. But the smallest are 70.
So this is, give me a description. Is this close? I mean, are we talking about?
I would say that if I go out to, say, Forest Creek or to, Forest Creek is probably mostly 50s and 60s. Creekside is, the new section of Creekside is pretty much 50s. So, you're going to, if I take a standard Creekside house that's been built recently, that's a 50-foot wide lot, okay, I got an extra 10 foot on that side, I got an extra 10 foot on the other side. So this is a little bit larger, and we think that's a useful thing. We like the SF 7.5 category because it does give you a little bit more room. Frankly, I think of it the boring way, right? Which is that once I get a couple of teenagers in the house, and then I've got my garage full of storage instead of cars, and mom and dad park on the driveway, then the kids who are in high school park on the street in front, and they just fill the whole thing up, right? And that's the conflict I get into in a neighborhood like the Stallings Edition, right? Where I got a bunch of 45 or 50-foot lots where it's just really hard to manage that off-street parking. Manage the on-street parking, because you just have overflow. And so this 70-foot lots, 75-foot lots, I think that's going to work really good in this neighborhood.
And these are front entry garages?
Yes, sir.
because
Yes,
there's
sir.
no alleys?
Yeah.
With just a little side note, I've actually received some complaints in my office
Okay.
about I can't believe it's maybe the Creekside neighborhood, one of the newer neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Where the trash cans are being left out at the road and people aren't putting them away. Do y'all have an ordinance on that by chance?
You know what? Yes, and I can talk to Mark a little bit about it. This is one that's been debated from time to time because some cities will have a requirement as strict as, hey, you can't put that trash can out, earlier than 5 a.m. and you got to get it put away by 5 p.m. Ours is a lot looser than that. And so it has been talked about that we might need to tighten that ordinance up. So we'll make a little note of that, and we'll take a look at that and see what we might be able to do there.
On another note about trash, that the city has renewed the contract with Waste Management. Is it Waste Management?
It's Waste Connections.
Waste Connections. Can someone talk to them about how they do pick up trash along the street? Sometimes, and I have watched this, and I have contacted the person who's over all of that. But if you all could mention it to Waste Connections, that when they empty the trash cans do not go in the back of the truck, nor are they left across the street from the house.
I think that's good feedback, and if we talk about it any more, then if there were a lawyer in the room, he'd throw the flag for being off topic. But thank you, that's perfectly good input. We'll follow up on that.
Okay.
You left me, you just sat down, just gave up. Anything else we can do for you guys? The request from staff is we'd like to be able to bring this to city council on Tuesday, and so we'd ask for a recommendation that the council consider this item and approve it.
Okay.
Are you gonna, so we're looking at the agreement, right? Which is
Right.
DA 2401,
Yes, ma'am.
and you'd like us to vote on that,
Yes,
that agreement? Okay.
yeah. You're recommending city council approval.
Anyone have any other questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to approve DA 2401 Kingsman Estates agreement.
Can I get a second?
Did I say that right?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. 6.2, discuss and consider the TIRZ number 2 authorization resolution for a reimbursement of the City of Terrell Utility Capital Reserve Fund for the Brushy Creek wastewater treatment study.
Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. I'm going to introduce the item, and then I'm going to have DJ Brower come up and talk a little bit about the study, and then I will talk a little bit more after that about the potential of the use of TIRZ funds for the study. If there are no objections, we're going to present items 6.2 and 6.3 together. They're the same presentation, so in the interest of time, we'll only go through it with you once. At the conclusion of the presentation, there are additional items where we're going to ask you to approve a resolution, the TIRZ 2 board to approve a resolution, and the TIRZ 4 board to approve a resolution, or to consider approval of the resolutions. And I'm going to turn it over to DJ real quick. DJ?
Good afternoon. I'm DJ Brower. I'm the Director of Utilities, and this is a wastewater study for the west side of the city of Terrell. As you know, or maybe don't know, right now the city of Terrell has one wastewater treatment plant down by Kings Creek, which is in the southeast corner of town. We have some lift stations that pump wastewater from the west side of town to the east side of town into that plant. And with the potential of growth in the future to the northwest and to the north, that wastewater treatment plant is going to be undersized, need to be expanded. And one of the options we're looking at is putting a wastewater treatment plant on Little Brushy Creek. Trying to figure out how to move this thing. There it is. This is a basin study. The green outline is the drainage area that we're looking at. The line on the right-hand side is kind of the high point on the city of Terrell. We do have existing wastewater lift stations that are called out in the various white, red boxes with the lettering in there. Part of the reason that this study is being done is that TxDOT is widening Interstate 20, and we had just completed the Market Center lift station that's on the north side of I-20. They bought that land, we have to relocate it. So we're taking this opportunity now to restudy this area and decide what needs to be done. Do we relocate and just rebuild a new lift station, or do we actually go to the expense of building a new wastewater treatment plant that will help us in the long term by spending a little bit more money now and actually reducing the overall costs and maintenance in the future? We did a request for proposals, and we got 4 proposals. They were from Kimley Horn, KSA, Friesen Nichols, and Schaumburg Polk and I, otherwise known as SPI, all firms that have done work here in the city of Terrell before. We evaluated their proposals, and we chose Kimley Horn to do the study. They have given us a fee of $99,400 that we all pay to do this study. We're going to pay it initially out of the utility reserve funds, and we are requesting the TIRZ funds to reimburse the UCR as funds become available so that we can help reduce some of the rate increases that the citizens of Terrell are seeing. Are there any questions or comments that I can help explain as to what we're doing?
Does this study, is it a downstream impact study, or is it just,
It's basically looking at all the developments, what the flows are going to generate, where they would go, and try and locate an optimized location of where to put a wastewater treatment plant, and how big does the land need to be in order to get there. We aren't doing a sizing study or anything else. We're going to,
saying we're gonna dump it into Little Brushy Creek? You're trying to find out which,
yeah, it's the Brushy Creek Basin, but we may put it on one of the other tributaries or on Little Creek. That's kind of the intent, is to find out how much we can get where and how much area we can actually cover.
Yeah, I would kind of describe this as, we really don't know anything about that zone because we really haven't gone down this path before. And we just need to be wide open for letting the tech guys who are good at wastewater say, not that location, but this location, how in the world should we optimize this zone? We know it's not optimizing anything to have 5 or 6 package plants through that entire corridor. That's,
I
yeah,
understand that side of it.
right, yeah,
You're talking about this one area.
right.
If, when y'all decide to do this, and you probably will because of growth, the study will say it needs to be done. Are you including in this study impacts downstream?
That's part of the TCEQ requirements. We have to,
I don't know if it's TCU requirement.
well,
Downstream.
we have to show that we're not doing no adverse impacts at the point of discharge, which means that downstream, it should already be whatever the existing conditions are.
Should be.
Like anything else, floodplain development and development in general tends to increase flows, and we're trying to reduce the impacts by requiring detention and other things. And as you well know, cities and streams always have issues with the large storms.
I've got about 4 neighborhoods outside of Forney from down from Amazon and all that, Goodyear. You talk about retention ponds, you try to sell them on the idea.
Yeah, I know. Look at City of Austin.
Think about people downstream,
We do.
the county, because I'm one of the ones, Little Brush Creek was in my place.
No, and I think the fair statement here is that I think one of the reasons it's really good and healthy for TIRZ 2, TIRZ 3, TIRZ 4, the TIRZs that will use this, right, primarily to TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4. You know, I like it that we're creating a system here where you guys are involved in this, right? It needs to get done. It needs to be owned by the city of Terrell eventually. On the other hand, what's the best place for fill in the blank number of acres, and what are the operating characteristics of it whenever we're really able to do it? I'll assure you, this could easily be the kind of process where we identify in this study, hey, we need fill in the blank number of acres, and go ahead and hurry up and buy it, but hurry up and buy that land to secure the land price and to know where it is and start getting our stuff in order. That doesn't tell you when we're going to build it, right? It just gets us going in the right direction. So there could be, it could go quick if development goes really quick, but, you know, look at what we all thought development was going to be in 2009. Then you had a big gap, right, because of a downturn in the economy. So I don't want to guarantee anybody pace, but to me, getting some decision-making done up front about location, that benefits everybody.
But we're not doing, this is a study first.
Right.
Correct.
On whether we should buy the land or not.
And if so, where and how big?
Right.
And you want us to discuss how to reimburse the city from those funds.
Correct.
When they
That's the
become
short
available.
version, yes.
Right, right. It's exactly right.
But you're doing a study of this area and the feasibility of it first.
Yes.
Right.
Then we can talk about whether we want it there or someplace else. Or we're wanting to put it in this basin.
Yeah, because ultimately the land purchase is going to be an agreement that I'm sure is going to have probably, depending on how much the land costs, may have to come to the TIRZ or at least city council at bare minimum to justify the funds.
But first, we're doing the study.
Yes.
Okay. So we can do the study, and then we can decide from there.
Yeah, because typically we're going to have 2 or 3 options, and some are going to cost a little bit more, some will be a little bit less, you know.
Yeah, I always give folks the disclaimer on any study. You get to the end of the study and you can say, wow, that turned out to be a terrible idea. Or you have a range of things that are the 2 or 3 leading options. Staff might show up and say, well, we think the best technical answer is X, and we discuss it in front of a board, and then all of a sudden somebody in the board says, hey, smart guy, you missed something. And we turn to one of the other alternatives, right? That's why you're reading the study. That's why you do the study. So I don't want to come forward and say, well, we're sure the study's going to say this and have this result. We just are pretty sure that, like I said, 6 package plants in one basin, that seems like a bad idea. Let's study it, let's evaluate it, and let's figure out where we need to go long-term. My observation for the city of Terrell overall is, I don't think, this is my gut feeling, I don't think that having a giant piping wastewater from that half of the city all the way over to Kings Creek and, force maining wastewater for all of that, all the way over to Kings Creek, I don't think that's going to pass TCQ scrutiny because that's going to put too much wastewater in Kings Creek. And so I think that this is a wise study to do, but we'll be looking at a lot of options as part of this study. And we will not move forward on any option until we come forward and say, hey, TIRZ board, you're the entity that was funding the reimbursement of this study. So therefore, we're going to show you results. We're going to discuss it with you. And you're going to see from DJ and from his consultant team again, well, where we stand, what's the right idea, what should we be doing here, and what were the results of the study?
Okay, so
Yeah.
back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
When you do the results of the study, I think we all understand
Yeah.
what you're doing here. And part of the study for the decision-making process at the end, all the recommendations we get, is going to deal with impacts downstream.
I will specifically make sure that Kimley Horn addresses that.
That's part of the information that we make the decisions with.
Yeah.
I understand all the other stuff that you're
Right.
talking about,
Yeah.
but I want that included in the study.
We will do that, definitely.
It's a big ask.
It shouldn't be.
Be able to generate what kind of output you're gonna have for your
Yeah, because normally, what's coming in is what's got to go out, and usually what should be already have gone into that basin anyway. But like you said, things change, and
Yeah. It's good input, and we'll take that input, absolutely.
so what I'd like to do is turn it back over to Mark to explain the financing options and the costs to each of the TIRZ.
So the original funding for the study was included in the FY24 budget, included in the city's utility capital reserve. Based on the impact that TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4 will have on the sewage output in the area, and the wastewater output in the area, we've determined that the study is eligible to be funded through a reimbursement through the TIRZ for TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4. So TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4, as you know, were created in 2002, and we anticipate collection of revenue to begin in calendar year 2024, but it will likely take 2 to 4 years before it stabilizes. What staff is proposing is a temporary use of utility capital reserve funds to be repaid from future TIRZ revenue from TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4, split 50-50. So the repayment would take roughly 2 to 4 years, and we have some draft schedules based on estimates put together between us and our consultant that would reimburse, each zone would reimburse 50% or $49,700. TIRZ 2 would reimburse roughly $3,000 a year for the first 2 years, with the remaining coming in, we anticipate coming in 2026. And then TIRZ 4 reimbursement would be roughly $5,000 in 2024, $29,887 in 2025, with the remainder in 2026. Again, the total being $49,700 for each. Again, this is going to be contingent upon the receipt of revenues, but this is our projection based on our discussion with P3 Works, who is our TIRZ administrator. So this afternoon, what we're going to do is we're going to be asking you to consider approval of an ordinance for TIRZ 2. The ordinance number is 2024-1. We're also going to be asking you to approve a resolution for TIRZ number 4, which is also numbered 2024-01. It's going to recommend that the initial payment be made out of the city's utility capital reserve to be reimbursed from future TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4 revenue. And it also provide a recommended repayment schedule which mirrors what was on the previous slide. I will also ask, the resolution will also recommend that City Council approve the use of the utility capital reserves to be reimbursed by TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4. On January the 9th, if you approve, we'll take the item to the City Council. They will be considering the approval of the Little Brushy Creek study contract, as well as considering the use of the capital reserve funds to be reimbursed by TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4, based on your approval of the resolutions presented today. I'm available for any questions you all may have.
I see where you got your 49,000.
Yes, I'm sorry, the total cost is $99,400, and we're splitting the cost 50/50 between 50% each of TIRZ 2 and TIRZ 4.
Okay. And this is just for the study?
This is just for the study. We're not asking you to approve any kind of location, any kind of construction. This is simply for the study, so we have additional information so we can come back and actually make recommendations.
Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, that's what, so this is for 6.2 and then again for 6.3.
Yeah, and if it helps, the resolution number for both are 2024-1.
Can I get a motion to approve item number 6.2?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for 6.2. Moving on to 6.3. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 6.3 carries. Okay. Moving on to 7.1, discuss downtown development update with Raylyn Smith, please.
Good afternoon. I won't take up very much of your time. I wanted to share with the TIRZ board the presentation that was presented to the Chamber Executive Board in the last couple of weeks. This will also be presented to Paddock. So it's just kind of kicking off our second quarter of all the downtown projects. So it's going to be a little bit of a recap of everything that you know is going on, but what to look forward to for the end of this year. So I opened up with just reminding everyone about the quality of life audit that actually took place with the city of Terrell over a year ago now. And, you know, it was asking the question of what are we missing and what attracts people to other communities, what's going to attract people to stay in our community. So the areas that were looked at during the quality of life was community, neighborhood, education, job opportunities, outdoor activities, shopping, dining, entertainment, and walkability. And so I think it's important just to reference back to this quality of life audit as we work through these different projects and start to see the coordination between the projects that we're proposing through our different boards and also to our city council and how they help to address some of our quality of life categories and also our obvious scoring. We had an overall letter score of C. And so as I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the study and that these are the items that we try to address with projects that we bring forward to you. The three major projects that we've been talking about since I got here last September is multiple infrastructure and roadways, quiet zones, and complete streets. So just to go back a little bit, we've all seen a number of maps, we've all seen a lot of exhibits. So to remind everyone that our comp plan and our downtown plan was adopted back in 2019. So we have those maps that have become very famous on social media, all about town square. There's been a lot of ideas that have been thrown around in the past 4 or 5 years. And what I would like to say now to the community is I think we're really starting to come down to some concrete ideas and some phasing for those projects. There was a lot of proposed redevelopment. There was a lot of potential redevelopment in the area. And so now we've kind of narrowed down our focus of what our projects moving forward are going to be. One of the big announcements is the infrastructure and roadways. This will be a city-wide project. The city council, during their last certificate of occupancy approval, will be doing engineering for a lot of what I know you have all heard the term our red streets. So the city council will be addressing a lot of major roadway construction over the next few years. And with that, just making sure that it's coordinated with any utilities and also our sidewalks and all of the changes that have been made. I'm sorry, didn't mean to press that. So with quiet zones, we've tried to keep you pretty updated on that. We are moving forward, the FRA, we are waiting for applications for the Chrissy grant to become available. We have started our pre-design thanks to the funding that was made available through the 2019 Coppin County bond. They are helping with the design costs for the railroad constructions. And so this would be a quiet zone going from FM 148 all the way down to approximately Birch Street, which would be across from Terrell State Hospital. What this would do is it slows down the trains just a little bit, but ultimately it makes it to where there's a section of town where they no longer blow their horns. The good side to this is there is a lot of pedestrian and a lot of transportation upgrades that happens at each one of those crossings. So we feel very confident in our grant application in that the majority of the upgrades that we would be making for a quiet zone actually address more safety concerns than anything else. The added bonus would be that we would also at that point qualify to be considered for a quiet zone. Complete streets, there's been a lot of talk about Highway 80 and Spur 226, trying to make downtown merchants feel comfortable that we listened. We understand we do not want to touch the parallel parking. We want to make sure that we have a good plan in place for Highway 80, but understand that really needs to be a TxDOT-driven conversation. They need to really let us know whenever when that construction hits their list. We will probably move to start focusing more on Spur 226 and how can we reallocate local funding and grant matches to get some of our local streets outside of Highway 80, just simply because of the cost of that project. We do know that it would be a project that would be picked up by TxDOT when it meets their schedule. And so we want to make sure that we've done enough pre-design work that we have a good plan to present to them and be able to show them our town hall meetings and our city council meetings and the times and presentations that were made to our boards. We will continue to follow up with our PRC, which is our Project Review Committee, and they make recommendations to TxDOT. It also includes county commissioners, TxDOT, COG. We have several people on that PRC that meet. There's a representative from TIRZ and then also from the Paddock Board. So that's just kind of an overall. We do have, we will be bringing forward to you just some updates on these, but I wanted to make sure that you knew exactly where we were on the projects. And obviously, none of this happens by, we are definitely not siloed around here. These are just a list of some of the public partnership opportunities that we have and the different groups that we're working with. the FRA, the CRISI grant, et cetera, which is huge for our railroad crossings. And I've mentioned our county bond program, our project review committee, and there you have COG and TxDOT. The next two slides are our desired outcomes and guiding principles for these projects. This kind of goes back to the quality of life. What are we looking for with each of our projects? What do we want in our downtown? What do we want our community to represent? And so, we always want to make sure that we're giving small businesses a place to launch and grow. And really, at the end of the day, it's the last line, which is residents can enjoy visiting a peaceful, well-manicured environment. And how do each of these projects play into those desired outcomes? We try to make sure that we have these principles and outcomes highlighted anytime we're going through different project drafts or concepts to make sure that we're meeting our goals. These are just the recap of the Union Pacific Railroad Quiet Zone meetings. And like I said, we're moving forward with the CRISI grant application, and we will be bringing forward updated information as we have it. Complete Streets again, Spur 226, some of the other projects outside of Highway 80 will probably be brought to y'all for more design work. But we'll definitely be looking for grant opportunities this fiscal year going into fiscal year 25 as we get more of the design pieces together. As you know, I work with the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. They are more of the capital project funding. And then TIRZ #1 has been the one to help pick up some of the maintenance with our downtown areas. So I wanted to kind of highlight some of what they have done in the last couple of years in their long-range planning. We've got Breezy Hill ball field lighting, Ben Gill Park lighting, the restroom packages that we've all seen and discussed. For fiscal year 24, we are looking at replacing the wooden bridge at Ben Gill Park, resurfacing some of those tennis courts in the multipurpose courts there at Ben Gill. And then just this past fiscal year in the summer, we added some lighting, some grills, and tables. So they did pull down from their cash reserve to do some additional capital projects for our parks. Downtown, we have completed a building code and preservation assessment. What this does is it gives us a list of all of our downtown buildings and the marketability. There's been a few recommendations as far as what level of reconstruction, what level of additions would need to be made to a building to have it, #1, brought completely up to code. Is there a grease trap available? What is the square footage, the number of stories? What types of businesses would work in this area? And so it's a really good retail piece whenever we're trying to find tenants for those buildings. We added the lighting to all of our rooftops downtown, and then they also continued their $75,000 per year grant incentive opportunities. Some of the major capital projects for 2024 is the downtown landscape project. It took us a few weeks to figure out the irrigation system, but we are on board for a 40-day construction timeline, and we should be installing 20-plus trees, all new landscaping and irrigation between Rockwall and Virginia. You partnered with the Paddock Board for the Virginia and Moore parking lot improvements, so we will be ready to bid those projects at the end of this month. So hopefully by spring, we will have the parking lots down here at the corner. They allowed for a more defined grant and incentive opportunities, whereas before it was just based on facade and what the owners or tenants were requesting. We kind of broke it down into 3 different areas, one being specifically to the central business district. Another would be CBD and also the downtown district. They kind of widened the scope for monies available, and then also lease assistance. And so as we encourage property owners to renovate their buildings and provide them money for facades, We also understand that the leasing amounts are going to go up for future tenants or existing tenants. And so what they're trying to do is kind of fill in some of those gaps for up to 2 years. So the maximum would be 20% of the new rental rate, and we check marketability for the rate that they've been given, and then that would give them a 20% reimbursement for up to 2 years. And there's also an incentive on the grant side for businesses that are open past 5 p.m. They're eligible for more funds than those businesses that are just your standard 8 to 5, to encourage people to bring in some retail and restaurants. And then, of course, just the continued Highway 80 and Spur 226.
Note one little thing at the end of that, and that is, Marilyn mentioned that everything kind of works to good to support everything else, right? Remember that one of our chief concerns, and one of the things that we've had Councilman Simpson and others go to Washington, D.C. to lobby for, is assistance for Southwestern Christian College. So imagine you're in a dorm there now, and you would listen to that horn about 50 feet from your dorm room every night, 3 or 4 times. The ability to get that train horn turned off going past Southwestern Christian College is embedded in what Raylan just presented. That's a huge improvement in quality of life for those folks who live there at that location. And then we also have a plan for Bowser from Southwestern Christian College going all the way to US 80 that's also embedded in the Quiet Zone grant. So that gives us a much improved entryway for Southwestern Christian College to kind of reduce this element where it seems like it's hiding, right? We want to be proud of that. We want to make Bowser look like an important place and a great little entryway into that zone. So we have some concerns there, and we want to make sure that those get done. That's part of what we're going to DC for in lobbying, is not just supporting our downtown, but remembering that Southwestern Christian College is part of downtown, and the Quiet Zone and some of these other pedestrian improvements really help us highlight Southwestern Christian College. So I just want to mention that's part of the embedded in everything that we're doing as well.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
As I was listening to you, you made a point of referencing plans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everything that, so after your presentation, we're not talking about the proposed new location of the city center, is that correct? We're now talking about building up the quality of life for downtown.
Well, I think that it's all connected. Currently, right now, you do, of course, have Town Square in your plan. We completed all transactions and items that we needed for the land acquisitions in that area, but there's a lot of planning that's going to go into that. Number one is the drainage in that neighborhood.
So that would explain you talking about those 3 phases. So we're doing the streets and drainage, trying to get all of that.
That's
out.
ongoing, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, what does it mean that our overall letter score is a C?
That's just the average of all of those categories.
And that's based on
So
somebody's
well-
definition of what a quality of life in a city is.
Right. Well, these were interviews. These were actual people who participated in a survey. So we had our community members, we had some of your high school graduates from Terrell High School that moved away and didn't come back. You had some that moved away and did come back. And so I think we had a very good pool of individuals, and we were able to ask some questions, some hard questions, because I think that as a city, you need to take the good and the bad and, just find out from community members how we can do better and what we need to do better. And hopefully you do this again in a couple of years and you see where, you've made some headway in some of those categories.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that update, Ms. Smith. Moving into 7.2, discuss of the role and assignments of P3 Works.
Board, good afternoon again. So you're going to hear us reference P3 Works. P3 Works is our TIRZ administrator for TIRZ 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we wanted to bring them here today and introduce them. Kirk McDaniel is our project manager. Kirk is actually going to be providing a presentation for item 7.4, so I thought it was appropriate that we introduce him to you before that. And then with him today also is Jamie Schulte, who is our project analyst on our TIRZ 1, 2, 3, and 4. So P3 Works, we've included in your packet information on P3 Works, a background of the organization. So we provided that in advance so you had an opportunity to review that. P3 Works was created to assist cities and counties with special management districts and other special districts like public improvement districts, municipal management districts, and in our case, the tax increment reinvestment zones. So P3 Works, as I said, they serve as the TIRZ administrator for TIRZ 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kirk McDaniel is going to be presenting item 7.4. And Kirk is the gentleman back here on the third row. So to give you an idea of what P3 Works does, in conjunction with the city, they assist in the preparation of the preliminary project and finance plan for each of the tax increment reinvestment zones. Again, in conjunction with the city, they assist in the development of the final project plan and finance plan for each TIRZ based on final terms that are put in place with the developers. They provide amendments they help us develop amendments to project and finance plans as those needs arise. And then they also help with the preparation and filing of necessary comptroller reports required for each of the TIRZ districts. They're annual reports that the city is required to file, and they help with those. They assist in ensuring that the TIRZ revenue is properly allocated to the respective TIRZ funds. And they review the developer reimbursement requests to make sure that they are complying with the terms of their agreement. They review the county's property tax collection reports, as well as they coordinate with Kaufman County. I came from Tarrant County, I apologize, with the Kaufman County Appraisal District regarding TIRZ values. And on an as-needed basis, they work with the city, and they help us develop preparation of presentations, ad hoc reports, cost of service models, and developer agreement review. Their costs can be absorbed by the TIRZ, so it is an administrative cost of the zone, so the zone is paying for that. And to give you an idea of some of the clients that they have in their portfolio, they work with Louisville and Ennis, Anna, Pilot Point, Mansfield, Tyler, Saxe, and others. I can tell you that I have experience with P3 Works and Kirk specifically. I've worked with them for quite some time. When I was at the city of North Richland Hills, they were our PID administrator for the City Point PID. So I'm familiar with them and familiar with their work. Kirk and I are available for any questions that you may have. I couldn't hear the question, I apologize.
Yeah, was, in my sarcastic manner, was the plot list kind of meant to be a positive thing?
He doesn't know you. You just got him all messed up, is all I can tell you.
Any other real questions?
So they are an administrative person. They are the administrative arm for handling TIRZ.
They help us with the administration of the TIRZ, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would just contribute that my whole thinking in this is just that as we get more sophisticated, more complicated with everything we're doing, whether it's tax increment refinance districts, the days when hey, we're a little bit late turning in a comptroller report, or we didn't get the audit, or we, stubbed our toe on some reporting requirement. Every year since we've created TIRZ #1, not only have we gotten more complicated about what we're doing, but the state comptroller has increased their requirements on what we need to report and how we need to report. And so we just felt like it was really time for us to make sure that not only do we have P3 off to the side, where they created the project plan, finance plan for TIRZ 2, TIRZ 3, and TIRZ 4, but you just get to start seeing them more often and interact with them a little bit more directly so that you are helping us hold them accountable and you have a direct line of communication with them as well.
So you are holding us accountable to the state?
That's what he helps us do, yes.
Yeah.
The state, because the state comptroller has required more things.
Yeah, there's a few specific forms that are required to be filed by the comptroller under state law whenever you have a TIRZ in place. And so we work with city staff to put those documents together and submit them in a timely manner to the comptroller's office. And they're actually changing their typical system that they've been using for the past few years. This year, they have a seminar on it next week that we'll be attending. So that process is evolving as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much for that. Moving into 7.3, end of FY23 financial reports. Mike?
I feel like Raylan has the fun job and gets to report the fun stuff, and then everybody else here has to slog through numbers and data and all of that sort of thing. How did Raylan even left? Look at that. She gives a fun presentation about downtown and then she leaves. All right, so I'm just going to give you numbers, and I think the first one you have on your screen is TIRZ #1. So Shelley Wallace is our finance director, and of course she's in charge of this and apologizes that she can't be here today. So I'm filling in for her, but here's a quick review about how we did in FY23. So the column that says budget FY23, of course, is what we set in place last year for our prior fiscal year. And of course, that ran from October 1, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. These are the numbers that we start with our auditor, and we think they're good numbers, but you always want to go through the audit process, and so we have the disclaimer for you that these are unaudited end of FY23. So the budget was for a combined $2.2 million, about $480,000 of county funds, $1.7 million worth of city funds, and that totaled up to $2.2 million. We actually collected a little bit less than that because we budgeted based on 100% pro forma, 100% tax collections, and we obviously didn't get 100% tax collections. And so we'll be going back through that and making sure that anybody who pays late, make sure their payments get put into the right place. So we were a little bit short on our collections this year. Under the expenditure side of it, you can see we originally budgeted to spend about $3 million. We ended up spending about $2 million and never complained about spending less. So that's a healthy thing. You can see that we were a little bit more, we were under budget, I'll say it that way. We were under budget on consultant fees and services, the library assessment, some of our administrative costs we kept down, and some of those we paid from other funds. We kept our expenses down on our town square master plan. Our grant match was not quite so arduous as we thought it might be. We did pay out just about the full amount of that Pena partnership. That's associated with the Anderson building, so we had some funds to pay there. BFTS pre-construction, that's safety related to the old Chapman building as we aim for grants to help us build the downtown British Museum. We still have to take care of that building, and we still need to make sure that it's a safe building and we don't want anything falling off the back side of it. So that's the BFTS pre-construction. Demolition, pretty healthy dollar amount there, but we did not fully expend that line item either. We held off on a drainage landscape project and came in below budget on land acquisition. Our debt service was that transferred INS #1, because remember that we did borrow money to help us with some of our downtown projects. So we have a calculated dollar amount that we send over to the INS number 1 fund every year. So that's a quick look at TIRZ number 1. All in all, good news. We were budgeted to go down in our fund balance, and we, excuse me, we were going to go down about $800,000 in fund balance, and instead we only went down about $60,000 in fund balance. So we think that's a good, healthy year. We know we're carrying a little bit of funding there, so nothing wrong with having money in the bank, and good to keep a little bit more than we plan to keep in the bank. So that's our TIRZ number 1 recap for last year. Power Center is a similar message. Again, that budget column tells you what we approved in last year's budget. Same story, because it's the same taxpayers, right? With the tax collections, our estimate was a little on the high side because we apparently didn't have some payers during our process. So we estimated $863,000 revenue, came up with $783,000 revenue. And then again, basically just did work saving money through the course of the year. You can see the 2 big ones down there at the bottom, engineering and drainage landscape project. We held off on both of those, so that saved us a good clean $200,000 in not moving forward on those 2 projects. And that means that instead of reducing our fund balance slightly, we did increase our fund balance slightly. So we started the year at $292,000 in the bank and ended up with $352,000 available for us to work with under the Power Center. So again, quick review on that, but both of them are just basically good news messages that we were budget conservative in FY23 and came out better than we thought we were originally budgeted for in both of those 2 major funds. No report, obviously, for you on TIRZ 2, TIRZ 3, TIRZ 4, because all of those revenues start coming in during FY24. So those were 0 revenue years, 0 expense years for TIRZ 2, 3, and 4. And so you'll see those as we start collecting funds in this property tax cycle. Any questions on any of the financial reports?
Yes, do parentheses mean positive or negative?
Well, that is a great question. So let's look at each one. So Power Center is the one in front of me, so we'll start with that. I am, quote, negative in that my revenues were $26,000 less on tax collections. So I'm.
That's what I'm not thank you. It's
Okay.
what you didn't spend is in the parentheses.
Right. What I didn't spend is in the parentheses down under expenditures, and what I did not receive is in parentheses under revenues.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to get the money. We are going to collect.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah. To the extent that any of that is due to a delinquent taxpayer, I can assure you, we'll all go get the delinquent taxpayer.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Did that include 7.4 too?
No, we're going to do one other little update. Mark, were you going to intro this one? Okay.
Thank you all again. I really don't have anything particular to add other than to introduce Kirk McDaniel, who is our project manager with P3 Works. Included in the presentation today is a copy of the 2002 report. We are still working on the 2003 reports. We're waiting for audited information. So we do not have the 2003 reports for TIRZ 1, 2, 3, and 4. I could present TIRZ 2, 3, and 4 to you, but as Mr. Sims said, there was no revenue, there are no expenses, so there is nothing really to report to you on those. But we asked Kirk to come and talk a little bit about the reporting that we do to the comptroller, what it looked like in 2002, kind of what's going on with that as far as 2003 and the reporting structure for that. And I'll turn it over to Kirk.
Thanks, Mark. So good afternoon, Board, Chairman. Thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As Mark said a couple of agenda items ago, P3 Works is a TIRZ administration firm. We work for cities all across the state, and we work exclusively for cities and counties and municipalities. We don't ever work for developers. For the items before me now, we have the various different TIRZs. So TIRZ number 1 was originally created several years ago, and so it's been highly active, as y'all are all well aware. And so we do have the 2022 fiscal year report available to you. I think that's in front of you now, and we can walk through it here. It's broken up into 3 different steps. So the first one is just the contact information. So in the previous year, the city secretary is the person who executed the document. I think going forward, it will probably be the assistant city manager. I think Mark will probably execute those as we work with him on it. But that's some fairly routine contact information items. For step number 2, this is kind of overview information about the TIRZ. Most of this doesn't really change on a year-to-year basis. If it does, then there's additional reporting that we have to provide to the comptroller, which would be the ordinances that are amending the zone, any amendments to the plans, any amendments to the boundaries of the zone. All of that type of information has to get disclosed to the comptroller's office. But generally speaking, the main thing that's going to change on that step 2 section is going to be the reporting years. You're going to go from 2021 to 2022, and it'll be 2022 to 2023. Beyond that, the other information that's included there is the acreage of the zone, the type of property that's going to be in the zone, and then the type of projects that the zone can fund. All of that information is taken from the project and finance plan from whenever the zone was originally created and governed under. The next half of this section, we work with city staff very closely with. So again, this is fiscal year 2022. So we work with city staff to identify what the ending fund balance was for the year. The broad category of where those revenues were coming from. For TIRZs, generally speaking, it's almost always going to be property taxes collections and then a little bit of interest income. That's just typically how it goes. These other items very, very rarely are included under the fund revenues. And then for fund expenditures, broken up, really they come into 2 different categories usually, which is public improvements and then economic development programs. TIRZ number 1 has a long history, and so it has a lot of different categories. So this is actually more than most TIRZs typically. And then lastly, bonded indebtedness. The TIRZ number 1 has not issued any debt, and so this information will stay 0 and will likely remain 0 for the life of the TIRZ. None of the TIRZs are expected to actually issue debt themselves. They may support debt through other districts and other financing tools, but they themselves are not issuing the debt. That next section for 16 on, that is actually the incremental value of the zone. So as y'all are all aware, the TIRZ revenue is generated based on the increase in value. And so the comptroller, as part of that reporting every year, wants to see what that increase in value is. And so the first number is the value of the zone whenever the zone was originally created. The second number is the amount of incremental increase in value. And then the third number is those 2 put together. So that third number is the total taxable value of the zone as of that year. And so that's the main piece of information that we'll actually be reporting in the fiscal year 2023 reports for TIRZ 2, 3, and 4, since there won't be any revenues and any expenditures for any of those zones. It'll really just be updates on the value. So on a going forward basis, these are the types of reports you would likely see each fiscal year for each TIRZ that's created for the city. So for TIRZs 1 through 4. The other piece of reporting that we did want to kind of update you on a little bit is whenever you create a new zone, you're required to file certain documents with the comptroller's office. It looks pretty similar to this. The main difference being, instead of showing the revenues and expenditures of the zone on this slide, instead it shows the entities that are choosing to participate in the zone and what rates they're choosing to participate in it. And so we filed those documents for TIRZs 2, 3, and 4 with the comptroller's office earlier this year, but it's the new year. So in 2023, we filed those reports. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about the reporting process, but these are the kind of the documents that the comptroller requires. As I mentioned a little bit ago, the comptroller says that they're overhauling this process, and so these forms may look different in the future. It's possible. We'll know some more information here shortly as they're having kind of the training seminar for that next week, I believe.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
Great, pleasure to meet you as well.
Glad you're doing this. I couldn't.
Any other complaints?
And there's no executive session.
No executive session, all right. So we can adjourn.
We are adjourned, yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.